Ethan stood outside room 306, his heart pounding as the key card trembled in his hand. He took a deep breath and swiped it, pushing the door open. Inside, the sight was a gut-wrenching confirmation. Sophia and Chris sat close on the bed, their laughter dying the moment they saw him. The air turned electric with tension as Chris scrambled to leave, and Sophia's face crumbled in guilt. "I can explain," she began, but he cut her off, his voice firm and breaking. "Explain what? That you destroyed everything we built for this?" But before diving into this intense story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. The Miller family lives in a quiet rural town in America. Ethan Miller, 35, is a hard-working and devoted husband, providing for his family with love and dedication. His wife, Sophia, 32, has grown distant, often claiming to be busy with work or meeting friends. Their sons, 6-year-old Lucas, curious and observant, and 3-year-old Owen, innocent and affectionate, bring joy to their home. However, the warmth of their once happy family is fading. Ethan begins to notice Sophia's frequent absences and unusual behavior, but convinces himself it's the stress of life. Yet his unease grows as the signs become harder to ignore. It was a sunny Saturday when Ethan decided to take Lucas out for a father-son day. They went to the local park, where Lucas played Pokemon Go on Ethan's phone, running around excitedly to catch virtual creatures. After an hour, the phone battery died, leaving Lucas disappointed. On their way back home, Lucas asked if he could play the game on his mom's phone instead. Ethan hesitated briefly but handed it over, thinking it harmless. Lucas, unaware of the significance, unlocked the screen and stared at a notification that had just popped up. With childlike curiosity, he read the message out loud. "I'll wait for you at the hotel as planned. Room 366, Chris. _ Ethan froze in his tracks. His mind raced as he processed the words. Hotel? Chris? He thought, feeling a mix of confusion and dread. Lucas looked up at him, blissfully unaware of the storm he had just triggered, and asked innocently, "Daddy, who's Chris?" Ethan quickly masked his shock, replying as calmly as he could, "I don't know, buddy. Maybe it's someone Mommy works with." He forced a smile, though his heart pounded in his chest. The day that had started with laughter and bonding now felt heavy and tense. When they arrived home, Ethan tried to push the incident aside, convincing himself it could be a misunderstanding. But the message replayed in his mind like a broken record. Every word seemed to confirm what he had been afraid to admit for weeks: Sophia's increasing distance, the unexplained outings, and her guarded behavior with her phone. That evening, as Sophia cheerfully asked about their day, Ethan couldn't look her in the eye. He felt the weight of unspoken questions and unverified suspicions. Lucas, now engrossed in his toys, occasionally glanced at his parents, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. Ethan decided not to confront Sophia immediately. Instead, he resolved to observe more closely, piece together the truth, and find out what, if anything, this Chris meant in their lives. Deep down, however, he feared he already knew. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of unease after reading the message on Sophia's phone. That night, as Sophia scrolled through her phone on the couch, laughing at something she wouldn't share, Ethan's suspicion grew. He decided to keep a mental record of her behavior, looking for signs he might have overlooked before. Over the following days, Ethan became more observant. Sophia's late nights and vague explanations about work started to stand out. She frequently left the house dressed more carefully than usual, claiming she had errands or last-minute meetings. Though he wanted to believe her, the inconsistencies in her stories gnawed at him. Determined to find clarity, Ethan discreetly checked through household receipts and bank statements. It didn't take long for concerning patterns to emerge. Restaurant bills appeared for dates and locations he didn't recognize, often during times when Sophia said she was at work. Hotel charges were listed under her credit card, booked in towns that had no connection to her job. Even more unsettling were purchases of expensive gifts, jewelry, and designer clothing that she never brought home. Each discovery felt like a punch to the gut. Ethan stared at the receipts, the words blurring together as the weight of betrayal started to settle in. He couldn't deny the mounting evidence. While Sophia seemed cheerful and carefree, Ethan wrestled with anger, hurt, and disbelief. Still, he wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. He wanted to gather as much proof as possible, ensuring he fully understood the situation before taking any action. For now, he resolved to keep watching and waiting, though the growing suspicion was already straining his emotions and their marriage. Ethan's unease grew heavier with each passing day. The receipts and Sophia's increasingly erratic behavior painted a troubling picture, but he needed undeniable proof. Late one night, while Sophia slept, Ethan carefully accessed her phone. Though it was password protected, he had observed her unlock it enough times to know the code. His hands trembled as he unlocked the screen, unsure of what he might find. His first discovery was the GPS tracking feature. Curious and anxious, he checked her recent locations. To his dismay, he saw that she frequently visited a small hotel outside of town, a place that neither of them had ever mentioned before. The pattern was clear. She had been there multiple times over the past few weeks, often on the days she claimed to have work meetings. Ethan's heart sank, but he pressed on. Next, he opened her messages, scrolling past innocuous chats with friends and coworkers until he landed on a thread marked simply, Chris. The sight of the name sent a chill down his spine. His worst fears were confirmed as he read through the conversation. The messages were painfully intimate, filled with flirtation, declarations of affection, and details of their meetings. Chris Taylor, a 34-year-old man whose identity Ethan didn't recognize, seemed to have a deep connection with Sophia. They discussed plans for dinners, weekends together, and even joked about the secrecy of their relationship. One message read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again at our spot, room 306. Love you. Ethan sat back, his chest tightening as anger and heartbreak collided. There was no denying it now. Sophia was having an affair. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Despite the pain, Ethan knew he had to remain calm. Acting impulsively would only create chaos, and he wanted to protect his sons from any fallout. He saved screenshots of the messages and recorded the GPS data, ensuring he had everything he needed if the situation escalated. As he locked Sophia's phone and placed it back on the nightstand, Ethan stared at her sleeping form. A mix of love, betrayal, and anger coursed through him. The woman he had trusted with his heart and family had been living a double life, and the path forward would be anything but easy. The following weekend, Ethan made the difficult decision to involve Sophia's parents, Mark and Diane Anderson. He respected them greatly and had always admired their close-knit family values. However, the betrayal he had uncovered was too large to handle alone, and he hoped they could offer guidance, or at the very least, hold Sophia accountable for her actions. Ethan called Mark, carefully choosing his words. "Mark, I need to talk to you and Diane. It's important, and it's about Sophia." His voice was strained, and Mark immediately sensed something was wrong. They invited him over that afternoon, concerned but unaware of the storm brewing. When Ethan arrived at their house, his expression told them everything. Diane greeted him with a warm smile, but it quickly faded as she noticed the tension in his demeanor. "What's going on, Ethan? Is everything okay?" she asked gently. Ethan shook his head and said, "I wish it were, but I need to show you something." Sitting at their dining table, Ethan carefully laid out the evidence he had gathered. He showed them the hotel visits on Sophia's GPS, the receipts for extravagant gifts, and finally, the text messages exchanged with Chris. Each piece of evidence hit them like a hammer, their faces etched with disbelief and sorrow. Diane's hand flew to her mouth as she read one of the messages aloud, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't believe this. Our Sophia would never do something like this." Mark, visibly shaken, leaned back in his chair, his hands gripping the table tightly. "How long has this been going on?" he asked, his voice heavy with pain. Ethan, struggling to maintain his composure, replied, "I don't know exactly, but the signs have been there for weeks, maybe longer. I wanted to come to you because I thought you deserved to know. I also need your help. I can't face her alone." Mark and Diane exchanged a look, their disappointment evident. After a long silence, Mark finally spoke. "Ethan, we raised Sophia better than this. I don't understand what went wrong, but we'll stand by you. You and the boys deserve better. Diane nodded through her tears. We'll talk to her together. She needs to face what she's done, to you, to her family, and to our grandchildren. With their support, Ethan felt a small sense of relief. He wasn't alone in this fight, and together they would confront Sophia and demand the truth. The tension in Ethan's household had become palpable. Sophia's excuses were piling up, and her demeanor had grown increasingly detached. One evening she announced she had a late work meeting and wouldn't be home until late. Ethan's stomach churned as she spoke, her tone casual, but her eyes avoided his. Ethan nodded as if nothing were amiss. "All right, have a good meeting," he said, keeping his voice even, but inside he was boiling with suspicion. Tonight he would find out the truth. Once Sophia left, Ethan quickly arranged for a neighbor to watch Lucas and Owen. Grabbing his car keys, he followed Sophia at a safe distance. His heart raced as he kept her car in sight, careful not to be seen. She didn't drive toward her workplace, but instead took the highway leading out of town. Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel as she pulled into the parking lot of the same hotel he had discovered on her GPS records. Ethan parked a few rows back, watching as Sophia stepped out of the car, her outfit far too elegant for any work meeting. She glanced around briefly before walking inside. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he might find. Inside the hotel lobby, Ethan approached the receptionist, his voice calm but firm. "Excuse me, my wife just checked in. I need to confirm which room she's in. It's an emergency," he said, showing her a photo of Sophia. The receptionist hesitated, but Ethan's desperate tone convinced her to check. "She's in room 306, the receptionist said softly, giving him a sympathetic look. Ethan's chest tightened. The number felt like a punch to the gut. He thanked the receptionist and asked for the key, claiming he needed to deliver an urgent message. Reluctantly, the staff complied. Ethan stood outside room 306, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear muffled voices and laughter from inside. With a shaky hand, he knocked once. No response. After a few moments, he used the key card and opened the door. The sight inside was exactly what he feared. Sophia and Chris were sitting close on the bed, their intimate posture leaving no room for doubt. The air seemed to freeze as they both turned toward him, shock and guilt flashing across Sophia's face. Chris stood up hastily, stammering, I didn't know," before bolting past Ethan and out the door. Ethan didn't stop him. His focus was solely on Sophia, who had buried her face in her hands, tears already streaming down her cheeks. "Ethan," she choked out, her voice trembling, "I can explain." "Explain?" Ethan interrupted, his tone icy. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me? Sneaking around while I've been at home raising our kids and keeping this family together? Is this how you repay everything I've sacrificed for us?" Sophia sobbed harder, shaking her head. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was unhappy, Ethan. I felt trapped, and Ethan cut her off, his voice rising. "Unhappy, trapped, and instead of talking to me, you run to him? Do you even understand what you've done? To me, to Lucas and Owen?" His voice cracked as he mentioned their children, the weight of their betrayal hitting him like a ton of bricks. Sophia tried to step closer, reaching out to him. "Please, Ethan, let me explain. I still love you. I just—" "Don't," Ethan snapped, stepping back. "Don't say you love me. Love doesn't do this. Love doesn't betray the people it's supposed to protect." The room fell silent except for Sophia's quiet sobs. Ethan took a long, steadying breath, fighting the urge to yell further. He knew this moment would stay with him forever. But he also knew he couldn't let her excuses or tears manipulate him. After a long pause, he said, "I'll be filing for divorce. I'll be taking custody of the kids. They deserve better than this." He turned and walked out, leaving Sophia alone in the room, her cries echoing behind him. As Ethan drove home, a mix of anger, sorrow, and relief washed over him. The confrontation had been painful, but he now had the clarity he needed. There would be no more doubts, no more lies. For his sake and for his children's, he was determined to move forward. The day after the confrontation, Ethan began taking the steps necessary to end his marriage. His decision was no longer clouded by doubt or denial. Sophia's betrayal was undeniable, and there was no path back to the life they once shared. With the evidence he had carefully collected, text messages, GPS records, photos, and receipts, Ethan contacted an attorney to initiate divorce proceedings. During his meeting with the lawyer, Ethan laid out everything he had uncovered. The attorney, impressed by the thoroughness of Ethan's documentation, assured him that he had a strong case for divorce and full custody of the children. Ethan explained his priorities, ensuring stability and security for Lucas and Owen, and a fair division of assets that reflected Sophia's role in their downfall. The legal process began swiftly. Sophia was served with divorce papers within days, and the reality of her actions began to sink in. She reached out to Ethan, pleading for another chance, but he was resolute. "It's too late, Sophia. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences," he told her firmly. Her tears, once a weapon of persuasion, no longer had any effect on him. As the divorce case progressed, Sophia's life began to unravel. Her relationship with Chris, which she had sacrificed everything for, quickly fell apart. When Chris learned about the divorce and the potential fallout, he ended their affair, admitting that he had never seen their relationship as anything more than a casual fling. "You knew what this was, Sophia," Chris said coldly during their final conversation. "I never signed up for this drama. Good luck cleaning up your mess." His words cut deep, leaving Sophia devastated and alone. The news of Sophia's infidelity spread through their social circle, and the reactions were harsh. Friends who once admired her as a devoted wife and mother turned away, shocked and disappointed by her actions. Even her own parents, Mark and Diane, struggled to reconcile the daughter they raised with the woman who had betrayed her family. Mark, who had always been proud of Sophia's accomplishments, refused to defend her. "You had a good man and a beautiful family," he said during one of their heated conversations. "I don't know how you could throw it all away for someone like him." Diane, though more compassionate, also struggled to support Sophia, finding it impossible to excuse her actions. Isolated and filled with regret, Sophia attempted to mend her relationship with Lucas and Owen, but her efforts were met with resistance. Lucas, old enough to understand fragments of what had happened, refused to speak to her. "You hurt Dad," he said bluntly during one of their strained visits. "I don't want to see you." Owen, though too young to fully grasp the situation, grew more attached to Ethan, clinging to him for comfort and reassurance. Sophia's absence, once painful, became a fact of life for the boys as they adjusted to their new normal. With her marriage in ruins, her lover gone, and her social ties severed, Sophia found herself utterly alone. The regret that consumed her was a heavy burden, but it was one she would carry on her own. For Ethan, the focus shifted away from the pain of betrayal and toward building a better future for his sons, one without the shadow of Sophia's choices looming over them. The divorce trial was tense and emotionally charged, a culmination of the pain and betrayal that had shattered the Miller family. Ethan entered the courtroom prepared, his lawyer armed with the evidence of Sophia's infidelity, text messages, GPS data, hotel receipts, and witness statements. Sophia, on the other hand, appeared defensive, determined to deflect blame and salvage what she could from the situation. From the outset, Sophia's attorney attempted to paint Ethan as overly controlling, implying that his monitoring of her phone and movements was invasive and indicative of a mistrustful partner. Ethan's actions clearly demonstrate an inability to foster a healthy, trusting relationship, her lawyer argued. Ethan's attorney, however, countered with the evidence. The monitoring only began after Mr. Miller noticed suspicious behavior, which led to the discovery of Mrs. Miller's affair. His actions were not born out of paranoia, but from a desire to uncover the truth. With every piece of evidence presented, Sophia's narrative unraveled. The damning messages with Chris, the detailed GPS records, and the financial trail all painted a clear picture of her betrayal. Sophia took the stand and tried to justify her actions. "I was unhappy," she said, her voice trembling. "Ethan was so focused on work and the kids that I felt invisible. I made mistakes, but I didn't mean to hurt anyone." She glanced toward Ethan, hoping for a sign of sympathy, but his expression remained resolute. Ethan, when asked to testify, spoke plainly and from the heart. "I loved Sophia, and I believed we were building a life together. I worked hard to provide for my family, to give our kids a stable and happy home, but she chose to betray that trust. I'm here because I want to protect my sons from further harm and give them the stability they deserve." The turning point of the trial came when Lucas, the eldest son, was brought in to share his perspective. The judge, after careful consideration, allowed the testimony, given its relevance to custody. Lucas, only 6 years old but mature beyond his years, spoke with a quiet confidence that moved everyone in the room. "I want to live with Dad," Lucas said firmly. "He's always there when I need him. He reads me stories and plays with me and Owen, but—" He paused, his voice breaking. "I want Mom to know I'm sad she made Dad cry. I heard him at night, and it made me sad too." The courtroom fell silent, the weight of Lucas's words hanging in the air. Sophia, seated nearby, buried her face in her hands, unable to meet her son's gaze. Owen, too young to fully understand the complexities of the trial, hugged Lucas tightly and added, "Don't cry, Lucas. I'll protect you and Dad." His innocent declaration brought tears to the eyes of many in the courtroom, including the judge, who took a moment to compose herself before continuing. In the end, the evidence and the heartfelt testimony of the children left little room for doubt. The judge ruled in Ethan's favor, granting him full custody of Lucas and Owen. Sophia, while granted limited visitation rights, was ordered to pay child support to ensure the boys' needs were met. As the ruling was read, Sophia sat motionless, her head bowed in shame. The weight of her choices and their consequences was now undeniable. She had not only lost her marriage, but also the trust and respect of her children. Ethan, though relieved by the outcome, felt no sense of triumph. The victory was bittersweet, as it came at the cost of his family's unity. His focus remained on Lucas and Owen, ensuring that they felt safe and loved despite the upheaval. Outside the courtroom, Lucas and Owen clung to Ethan, their bond as a family stronger than ever. "We're going to be okay," Ethan reassured them, his voice steady. "I promise you, we'll be happy again." As they left, Diane and Mark Anderson, Sophia's parents, approached Ethan. "We're sorry for everything," Diane said softly, her eyes red from tears. "If there's anything we can do to help with the boys, please let us know." Ethan nodded, grateful for their support despite the circumstances. Sophia remained seated in the courtroom long after everyone had left, alone with her thoughts. The realization of what she had lost, a devoted husband, her children's trust, and the stability of her life, was a heavy burden to bear. Though regret filled her heart, she knew that the damage was irreparable. For Ethan and his sons, the trial marked the beginning of a new chapter. It wouldn't be easy, but together they were determined to build a brighter future. Their bond, forged through pain and resilience, would carry them forward. After the turmoil of the divorce, Ethan knew he needed to make changes to create a better life for himself and his sons. Leaving behind the memories of a broken marriage, he moved closer to his parents, Robert and Margaret Miller, who lived in a small, welcoming town not far from his old home. Their home was a familiar haven filled with warmth and unconditional love, and Ethan knew that having their support would be invaluable as he adjusted to life as a single father. Robert and Margaret embraced their new role in helping raise Lucas and Owen. They were overjoyed to have their grandsons nearby, and their presence provided a sense of stability for the boys. Robert would often take Lucas fishing at the nearby lake, while Margaret doted on Owen, baking cookies and reading stories to him in the evenings. Ethan felt a deep sense of relief knowing his children were surrounded by love and care. To ensure he could give Lucas and Owen the best possible support, Ethan began attending single-parent meetups in the community. At first, he was hesitant, unsure if he would fit in or if sharing his story would be too painful. But as he listened to others who had faced similar struggles, he found solace in their shared experiences. He realized he wasn't alone, and the friendships he formed there became a source of strength and encouragement. For Lucas and Owen, the adjustment to their new life was gradual but steady. Lucas, ever curious and observant, asked Ethan a lot of questions about why things had changed. Ethan answered with honesty, but also with reassurance. "Sometimes things don't work out the way we want them to," he explained gently, "but that doesn't mean we stop loving each other. It just means we're learning how to be happy in a new way." Lucas nodded, his young mind slowly processing the changes. Ethan made it a priority to spend as much time as possible with his sons. He took them on weekend outings to explore local parks, attend baseball games, and even visit the zoo. Lucas quickly developed an interest in soccer, and Ethan signed him up for a local youth league, cheering him on from the sidelines at every game. Owen, meanwhile, loved animals and joined a kids' nature club, where he could learn about wildlife and the environment. The boys began to thrive under Ethan's care, their laughter and joy filling the home. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments when the memories of their old life crept in, but the bond between the three of them grew stronger with each passing day. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he was creating a safe and happy life for his sons. One sunny afternoon, at a community event celebrating local small businesses, Ethan's life took an unexpected turn. He was browsing the booths with Lucas and Owen when he struck up a conversation with a woman running a table for a non-profit organization. Her name was Emily Carter, and she was a 36-year-old single mother who had also been through a difficult divorce. As they talked, Ethan learned that Emily had a young daughter, Mia, and that she had dedicated herself to helping families navigate life after separation. There was a kindness and understanding in her eyes that immediately put Ethan at ease. Emily's story mirrored his own in many ways, and their shared experiences created an instant connection. Over the following weeks, Ethan and Emily began spending more time together. Their relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to their children. They bonded over family outings, with Lucas and Owen quickly becoming friends with Mia. The kids' laughter during these moments of togetherness filled Ethan's heart with a hope he hadn't felt in a long time. Emily admired Ethan's devotion to his sons and his resilience in the face of adversity. Similarly, Ethan found comfort in Emily's warmth and her ability to bring light to even the most challenging situations. They often talked late into the evening, sharing stories of their past struggles and their dreams for the future. As the months went by, their relationship grew stronger, not only as partners but also as a blended family. Ethan and Emily supported each other in ways they hadn't thought possible, proving that love could indeed bloom again, even after heartbreak. Ethan's parents, Robert and Margaret, welcomed Emily and Mia with open arms, delighted to see Ethan find happiness again. Lucas and Owen, too, embraced their new dynamic, excited by the prospect of a larger, loving family. The home Ethan had once feared would be filled with pain and regret was now a place of joy, laughter, and new beginnings. Ethan realized that while his journey had been filled with challenges, it had also led him to a place of healing and hope. With Emily by his side and his sons thriving, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and a deep gratitude for the second chance life had given him. Together they looked forward to the future, ready to face whatever came their way as a family. Years had passed since Ethan had last seen Sophia. Life had moved forward for him, filled with new joys, challenges, and a sense of peace he never thought he would find. Lucas and Owen were thriving, and his relationship with Emily had brought a renewed warmth and stability to his family. He rarely thought about Sophia anymore, except on the occasions when her absence came up in conversations with his sons. One afternoon, Ethan found himself at a small hospital in town. Emily had asked him to pick up some prescriptions for Mia, and he had agreed without hesitation. As he waited in the pharmacy queue, his eyes wandered across the waiting area, and that's when he saw her. Sophia sat alone in a chair by the window, her posture slumped and her face etched with a weariness that went beyond physical health. Her once vibrant presence had been replaced by an air of frailty and defeat. Her hair was graying prematurely, her cheeks hollow, and her clothes hung loosely on her thin frame. She looked up and their eyes met. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, followed by a mixture of emotions: surprise, shame, and a deep sadness. Ethan hesitated for a moment, but then he walked over to her. "Sophia," he said, his voice calm but distant. She looked up at him, her eyes welling with tears. "Ethan," she replied softly. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." He nodded but didn't sit down. There was no anger left in him, just a quiet resolve. Sophia broke the silence, her voice trembling. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Are the kids doing well?" Ethan took a deep breath, his mind briefly flashing back to the painful days when everything had fallen apart. "Yes," he said firmly, "I am happy. The boys are doing great. Lucas is playing soccer and Owen loves animals. He's already talking about becoming a veterinarian." His voice softened as he continued. "But happiness doesn't just happen, Sophia. It's something I've worked hard to build for myself and for them." Sophia's head dipped, her tears falling freely now. "I'm glad they're doing well," she whispered. I wish I could have been there for them. For you." Ethan's expression remained calm but unyielding. "You had that chance," he replied gently but firmly. "You were part of their lives, part of my life, but you chose a different path, and that choice had consequences. I hope you've found some peace, Sophia, but I've moved on." Sophia looked up at him, desperation and regret shining in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Ethan, for everything. I wish I could undo it all." He gave a small, sad smile. "We can't change the past. All we can do is learn from it. Take care of yourself, Sophia." With that, Ethan turned and walked away, his heart steady and his mind clear. He didn't look back, even as he heard the faint sound of her sobs behind him. As he exited the hospital and stepped into the crisp afternoon air, Ethan felt an unexpected sense of closure. The pain and betrayal that had once consumed him were now nothing more than a distant memory, replaced by a life filled with love, hope, and purpose. Whatever path Sophia had chosen for herself, it no longer intersected with his. His focus was on the future, where his family awaited him, and the happiness he had fought so hard to achieve continued to grow. The story emphasizes that betrayal not only damages a relationship but also leaves lasting scars on everyone involved, especially innocent children. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to restore. However, the story also celebrates the resilience of the human spirit in overcoming suffering and rebuilding life. Ethan's journey demonstrates that with perseverance, determination, and love for family, we can create a new life filled with happiness and meaning. Life is shaped by choices, and Sophia's wrong decisions led her down a path of loneliness and regret. In contrast, Ethan's steadfastness and integrity allowed him to build a brighter future for himself and his children. The story also delivers a profound message about responsibility and redemption. Regret without accompanying change is meaningless, whereas letting go of the past and focusing on the positive can bring peace. Ethan refused to let the pain of his past hold him back. Instead, he found the strength to move forward and rediscovered love with Emily, proving that hope endures even after great loss. Ultimately, it was Ethan's love and devotion to his children that helped him overcome everything, reaffirming that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes, forgiveness simply means letting go to find inner peace.